Hey, what's going on, everyone? Okay, I'm going to have a good friend on today. I actually haven't even seen him since probably I don't know, like 2016, so it's been forever. But I'll wait for him to jump on and then we'll rock and roll from there. It's good. Man, I find with coffee, you can drink the same damn coffee like every freaking day. And it's always kind of like you're drinking it for the very first time. So let me just message him really quick and then we'll rock and roll from there. And you guys, if you have any questions at all in the meantime, yeah, feel free to ask. Happy to answer them. We'll rock and roll from there.
There he is.
Hey, Seth, what's up, man? If it's not Hugh Jackman's brother himself, in the
Wait, so am I vertical for this?
there we go. Yeah, we got to
I
have it
was,
vertical, not landscape.
yeah, I was like listening to the instructions last minute, and I'm like, wait, this is not on a computer; it's on my phone, and it threw a wrench. I spiraled.
No, no worries, man. I think you could actually do it on the computer. I'm just not familiar with the settings. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just do it on the phone because I'm not
Yeah,
too tech savvy, but the little bit I know, I at least know how to do on the phone. So I'm like,
yeah.
if something goes wrong, I could at least like possibly have a chance of walking through it to get the live still going, you
It's just
know?
I'm so not used to doing any sort of like well, I guess I'm used to doing lives. I always when I chat with you, I feel like I'm on a podcast. So I was in my podcast mode, and then you're lighting on your phone. You're like, okay, this is severe.
Yeah, no. Well, I was telling people like, man, believe it or not, I haven't seen you since like 2016, man, like
It's been
2017 or
that
something
long.
like that.
Yeah, and the synchronicity of the way we connected. Like I've always felt, like I follow you and I look at all your posts, and I'm always like rooting for you from afar, just because I'm so dialed in and to everything that you're all about in fitness. I always have been. But I was looking upon like some of your more recent stuff, and then literally like right as I put the phone down to go, I gotta like reach out to him and check in with him. I have a few questions for him. I got a message from you that was like, hey, let's do something. I was like, oh my God.
No, and I was trying to be like, I felt a disturbance in the forest. You're like, what's that? You know, I'm like, dude, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. How have
You're
you
like,
been?
I don't speak nerd. I'm like, it's okay. I do it for you. You know, I'll translate for you. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, totally.
No, man, but I just wanted to catch up. We can cover like so many different topics. We can see whichever way it goes and just kind of improv this one. Um,
For sure.
I know you've been coaching. How long have you been coaching for?
God. I like to live in the day. And so when I get asked this, I always kind of round it. I would say it's about 13, 14 years I've been in the
Yeah.
business. Yeah.
And you're like, for people that know, he was actually a very popular news anchor. Uh, and
God.
before that, he was like a body double for Hugh Jackman in all his movies, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I would. I would.
Yeah.
But I do have so many questions for you. That's why I would love to like leave it open.
Yeah.
Um, you
Yeah.
know,
I didn't have a direction or script for this one. So I was like, you know what? I just wanted to catch up with him anyways, and we'll just see which
yeah.
direction
Well,
it
yeah.
goes.
So I do want to. First of all, like, where are you living nowadays?
Uh, it's kind of like 60 minutes like south of Austin. It's in between like Austin and San Antonio. It's kind of like a
Okay.
Big Bear type of community called like Canyon Lake, but without the four seasons.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I think I've heard of that place.
Yeah.
And what brought you out there?
You know, I always wanted to. I did live in Big Bear for a while, and just kind of like a real estate opportunity here. And also, like, I came to the conclusion at one point in my life, I just don't like cold weather or like the four season type weather.
Uh,
And so I was kind of like, you know what, I'll try to, at first I was like, you know what, I'm gonna like move to Alaska. But then I'm like, I had to be realistic with myself. I'm like, you know what, Eugene, you don't like the cold weather, you know, you don't like when it's like kind of like a lot of climate extremes, et cetera, although it looks nice on pictures, probably not going to be the best fit for you.
yeah.
So the place I found with only like two seasons, so it's pretty hot or pretty warm all year round outside of just like 1 month, it gets like pretty cold, but not like Alaskan type of cold. And I just kind of found this location, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna kind of go for this one.
Very cool. Yeah, I don't want to see you off the grid on some one of those shows on Netflix or something where they have the they find the people all like holed up in their cabin in Alaska because they're hiding from the world. I don't want that to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
you.
Let me turn this one on thing off. Give me 1 second. I keep forgetting to put sleep mode off so I don't get like a million messages. Yeah, I also don't think it's going to be easy to maintain a muscular physique, off of like 1,000 calories a day living off grid either. So I still enjoy. I kind of like living the more kind of like where you are disconnected from the matrix, but not like so far away. You can kind of plug in from time to time. Like if I want, like Austin is maybe like a 60-minute drive. San Antonio is like, 45-minute drive. And I find like personally, like the cities, I appreciate them more when I just go to them occasionally. But then when I'm living like dead center in the city, it kind of adds like more micro stress to my schedule than I would want, with the traffic and you go here, it's crowded. You go over there, it's crowded. No parking here, no parking there. Or now you got to park here, but it's like $50 just to be able to pay for something. You know what I mean? I'm like, dude, I got to pay $50 just to go and spend another like $100 here. You know what I mean?
It's my world. Welcome to
Yeah.
my world. And it's funny because, you know, what really stood out to me was these numbers that you posted for your age, right? 40 again is like in 2026 is not the 40 in the 80s or the 90s,
Yeah.
but it's still your numbers that you posted, your lab results were shocking at that age because metabolically speaking, it's like, and there's someone in their 20s, just at first glance. And so it's like when I ask you these questions, I'm actually not coming to you as a skeptic. I'm really coming as a believer, right? Like I do believe these numbers are real from you.
Mhm.
Because being in this business for a while, especially with social media and everything, there's a lot of charlatans. There's a lot of people selling stuff and making money, and like my hat is off to them. And you have to really start going like, who's telling the truth, who's not. And I've always just said like, this guy is being his authentic self. And then so you look at these numbers, right? And showed my partner these numbers, and he's in his 30s, and he's like, bullshit, there's just no way. And I was like, no, I trust me, this guy is really unique. He marches to his own drummer, and he is dialed in. And I think you know globally like what works to get these numbers right. Like someone at 41, I'm looking at your results right here. That's why I was like, I have questions for you.
Yeah.
1327 is testosterone,
Yep.
which is crazy high for 41 not being on any supplements, right? So, can you unpack that for anyone that would be listening, especially guys in their 40s? How did you naturally achieve that?
Yeah. Moreover, I wanted to kind of like have this be a podcast like between us, so I don't want to turn it into a monologue. So for people that are interested, I actually did an entire episode of how I got the numbers up to 1,300 at 41. And then like a while back, I also talked about at one point, it was when I was living the all-American lifestyle of working 7 days a week and not knowing any better. I kind of crashed my testosterone levels to like, I think it was like 450, and that was like in my 20s. And on the outside you would actually wouldn't notice a difference because I was still like super ripped and super fit looking. And in fact, like now looking back, it's like working those crazy hours plus doing all that high volume high intensity training actually like destroyed my testosterone even more. But back then I was kind of like naive and like, oh, this is just what you got to do to be healthy, and this is the right thing, et cetera, et cetera. So they're welcome to check it out. I mean, some basic things. It's usually it actually did come in a little bit higher than usual these days. I get my full male blood panel done like once a year. Some people recommend doing it twice a year because I'm not doing any TRT or anything. I don't do it that frequently, and my kind of health practices are so consistent. I found that when I did it more times per year, it really didn't show any difference. And I just don't like, the whole entire, you got to go to the hospital, get your blood drawn, you lose a bunch of blood, et cetera, and the whole process of doing that too. So I just do it once a year. But again, if people are really on top of it, I think twice a year is good just to see where your numbers are at. It's usually actually honestly coming in at like about 1,000 or like 900 nanograms per
I mean,
deciliter.
just I mean, I haven't listened to that episode, and I'm going to, because I'm so fascinated. I kind of wanted just to save it, like, for the question. Do you think, globally speaking, that you wrote somewhere where you work twice a week, right? So 2 days a week, that kind
Yep.
of consolidation of whatever stress or focus lended itself to this like hormonal optimization.
Oh yeah, for sure. The body doesn't do too well with like a large amount of micro stressors,
Hmm.
followed by macro stressors as well. So that's going to have like a detrimental effect on people's testosterone levels as well. But it's kind of under the radar because people have accepted the fast-paced nature of industrial society these days, and they're not even sometimes questioning the unsustainability of it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you got to look at it like the central nervous system. It hasn't changed in like 250,000 years. It still thinks you're basically like some caveman in a dark cave that eats berries from time to time with that
Right.
kind of level of stimulation. And to think about like living that way now would sound like super crazy. You know what I mean? But that's actually ideally how the central nervous system has evolved to function. It's evolved like basically, let's say 30,000 years ago, you go on a hunt with your small tribe. It's quite stressful. You have a macro stress,
Hmm.
but it's short lived. You know what I mean? You kill the mammoth, and then afterwards, you have like valleys, long periods of like nothing going on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're out in nature all the time. You're definitely not working 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week for sure, especially in a sedentary environment, because when you're kind of sitting all day, et cetera, et cetera, your body's it has limited resources for everything. So it thinks like, hey, this person doesn't need to be like a warrior or a hunter in their life. So I'm just going to plummet their testosterone levels because they just don't need that anymore. You know what I mean? Among a myriad of other things, people's lifestyles are so, poor in various aspects, not just the work environment. And so, of course, that plays a huge part in it. My most recent book, I kind of wrote about how I was able to do this active retirement financially. I mean,
Hmm.
a small part of the book, it kind of outlines, how Americans became mentally and physically the sickest humans in all of human history. But the majority of the book is actually how to distance yourself from this culture that has normalized so much pathology, and how to mainly do it financially. And I just talk about it there. It's like, I don't know, like a 100-page book with pretty big font. So even people with a short attention span can read it quite quickly. I think it would take you like an hour to read it or something.
I can't wait to read it. I honestly, um, I felt both convicted, interested, everything from all these posts, and I'm really proud of you. And as someone that has been in the trenches of health and wellness for a while, to do something like this and to stand behind it and stuff, that's pretty awesome. So congratulations.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot that goes into testosterone optimization. I can keep going on, probably a lot of the stuff you
Well, it's
know
not
about
even
as
just
well.
testosterone optimization. That's part of the picture, right? You have body fat of 10%. You posted your blood pressure, your triglycerides, right? Heart health is and like overall metabolic picture is there, and really it's about like that lifestyle, compressing into the work and doing these things is um is really cool and
Yeah.
inspiring.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing I want to note is a lot of people complain about low testosterone these days, but like a healthy normal testosterone range is like for 800, even for males in their 40s or 50s. That's pretty common to see in like very healthy males. I think a lot of times people just see low numbers these days because, again, they're averaging from a population that's kind of like normalized mental and physical illness to such a high extent. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Not intentionally. I'm not saying these people are bad, but it's just they've been given the wrong information on how to live sustainably in an industrial society that honestly, in various aspects, is not sustainable. You know what I mean? But for one reason or another, they felt like they had to kind of keep up with the pace of it,
Yeah.
And there's a huge disconnect. It's like because biology hasn't changed at all in 250,000 years, but industry has changed gargantuous amounts. So now there's this kind of discrepancy with biology that kind of moves quite slowly, trying to keep up with industry that moves quite quickly. And then when you combine a population with like large amount of competition in a workplace, et cetera, even for people that don't want to live that way, they're kind of almost forced to live at a faster pace just to keep up, to keep getting a paycheck, and on and on. So it's like one of those like, I don't want to do it, but because everyone else is doing it, I have to do it in order to not lose my job. Although everyone else also probably doesn't want to do that. It's kind of one of those weird situations, that's I think that leads to a great GDP, but unfortunately leads to a population that's not like mentally or physically too well.
What I think is staggering and interesting for me is, I'm a holistic trainer, so you don't just pop a quarter in me and I like give you a workout. My job is to transform you to give you your goal, and I'll do whatever it takes. One thing I don't do is like send you to a steroid dealer, but I will do everything I can to optimize your situation. And it's always been that way for over a decade. And one of the things that is my job as a fitness professional, not a medical professional, is to know when to bring in a medical professional.
Mhm.
And so I would say, 20-ish percent of the time, maybe 25% of the time. And again, I usually have trained like a wide range of ages with men, let's say. 20-25% of the time we'll have to have a discussion of like where your testosterone is, because I'm seeing red flags. Or we'll have to get labs to see how your kidney and your thyroid is functioning, what your cortisol level is like. And again, it's a small amount of time. And just within the last 5 to 7 years, 50% of people I'm having to send out for lab work
Mhm.
because the testosterone, and we're talking these guys in their 20s and early 30s, the testosterone is all going down. All the markers are really going down sharply. So again, I'm having half the people I'm sending to a functional medicine doctor that I partner with. Her name is Michelle. She does core function health, and she's functional medicine doctor. So she's an actual, PA, but she has a holistic view where she'll look at the entire metabolic picture to kind of see what's going on rather than just going, oh, your testosterone is low, or oh, you're fine. But I'm having to send so many people to her because we're doing all of the nutritional and the lifestyle and the fitness, and everything is dialed in and we're getting that amount of results, but then there's something stuck, and we look at some lab work, and again, it's this global picture of the last 5 years. I feel like people's neuroendocrine systems, their hormones are going bonkers and berserk. um,
Mhm.
I can't figure out. I mean, I know that we're stressed out society, but it is interesting how much change I'm seeing in my clients.
Yeah, and I've seen that with coaching too. Like I've been doing it for like 21 years professionally. And when I first started, it was like the average person coming in just needed to lose like 5, 10 pounds. They're already working out, they're already eating really well, they're already sleeping really well, they're already mindful about whether they're in the right job or not, et cetera, or their core values. And they just needed something new, you know what I mean, or some kind of accountability. But now it's like I do see like the average person is coming in needing to lose like a minimum of like 50 pounds. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? And on like I think the average 50-year-old American in the US is on three or more pharmaceuticals
Yeah.
and still overweight, still chronically tired, still has no vitality, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't have any issue actually with TRT or any kind of medical approaches. I actually think they're great. Just the only issue is pretty much 98+% of people that take them use it as a crutch to not create any real change. You know what I mean? That's the issue. And then obviously they don't work. And on top of that, then you have this issue with like if you have high blood pressure, and they get you on some blood pressure medication, but you don't change the belief system that led you to behaviors that led to the high blood pressure, then okay, like 5 years later, now you're going to be having adrenal fatigue, which is going to be accompanied by like depression and like probably a myriad of other health issues. Now, instead of just high blood pressure meds, now you're on two antidepressants, TRT, and high blood pressure meds. You know what I mean?
And I
And
have
it's
to
on and
say
on.
that I have been there, right? Like, not saying that I've been on all of those specifically, but I have. That's why I got into training. Was taking a pill for everything, and I certainly take a few pills now, but nothing. I was so much more unhealthy in my 20s, but I was just gluing myself together with just a myriad of pills because I I was desperate. You know. And then I think if we're not careful we can go in and out of that kind of phase. But what do you think of peptides? They're all the talk right now. Like, I know that you're lifestyle based, but what do you think of all the different, there's a lot of different peptides, not just GLP-1s, but it's really
Mhm.
the hot topic right now.
Yeah, honestly, I've only studied peptides in terms of fixing intervertebral disc injuries, you know? So under that perspective, I don't think they're effective at all. I spoke even to Stuart McGill about this. He's like a very prominent spine pathology researcher from Canada. And at least back then, it was like a few years ago already at this point, he didn't see anything promising and stuff like that. So I don't know too much about it, to be honest. I know like a lot of the raw ingredients are imported from overseas, so you got to be like very, very careful with where you buy it from. Then the other step is being extremely careful with the company that formulates them, because processing is always like extremely, extremely, extremely important as well. And also just having the broader context of like, hey, did I already master the basics? Of being like living like a human being. You know what I mean? I know this stuff's like so obvious to you, you've done it for forever at this point, but to a lot of people, when I interview them, even if they think they're kind of doing the right stuff, as everyone and their grandmother thinks they know about healthy eating. But then when
Yeah.
you talk to them, you're like, dude, what are you talking about? You don't know anything
See,
about
the thing
proper
is,
nutrition.
uh, I said I did some sort of I don't know, it's a phone interview podcast or whatever the other day. I'm just at the point now where I have to start speaking my mind and speaking my truth or just jump out of fitness altogether. And that
Speak your
is,
truth, man,
yeah, like
24/7.
I just don't have time for this anymore. Like I'm like as much as I want to leave fitness, I try, like I just can't get out. But what I know that I'm just not willing to talk about is it's not about healthy eating anymore. It never fucking has been. That's never been the conversation. The conversation is emotional eating.
Yeah, for sure.
Period.
Uh,
It's
I was
about
just
we're not dumb. None of us are dumb. We have an incredible brain. All of us know how to make healthy choices. And this discussion incessantly around don't eat after this time and make sure to eat this. You learn that when you're in high school, middle school. We all know this. It's what the real conversation is. And I know this from, again, personal thing. And my mom ate herself to death.
mhm.
It's why am I choosing to eat this way? Why? What makes me inconsistent? What's behind that? Why is food my drug? Getting in behind that, that's when we have the real breakthroughs. That's when we don't need GLP-1s on half the population. But until we can get that dialed in, it's kind of like the wrong conversation.
Yes, you're 100% right. And I address this on like the first few pages of my book. I'm like, look, dude, you can't uh using diet and exercise to manage the symptom of excess weight is just another symptom management strategy. You know what I mean? And it may for some people produce results short term. Like you see a lot of people, they lose weight, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I just changed my diet and my exercise routine and I lost 40 pounds, 50 pounds. But if you go to pubmed.gov and you do a 3 year follow-up, 98 plus percent of them have regained it. I argue you do a 10-year follow-up, almost 100% of people would regain their weight if they're thinking like all they really do have to change is just their diet and their workout program. Like they just got to know a little bit more about macros or stuff like this. And it can't be further from the truth. So it's like when you run into people that are speaking at that level, it's actually like a helpful coach. You know what I mean? That's just not selling you false hope. You know what I mean? And stuff like that, because um, th- there is a lot that goes into, emotional eating. There's the whole aspect of like, I got this from Paul Chek of, people having like a misalignment in core values, which leads them into like story gaps in their life, uh, or like love hate relationships, for example, or like a sense of emptiness. And with a lot of people, it's kind of like um, they got to wear a lot of masks in life to
Mhm.
get through life. And
Yeah.
it's very stressful because you're so far disconnected from, like, as Walensky would call your essential core. And because the world isn't going to accept you for who you are. It's funny, society is so silly. They always say, oh, just be who you are. And then you try to be who you are, and they're like, no, not like that. you know so that's the dilemma. And inevitably, when you're living in hardcore embedded into society, you got to wear some masks. That's why I encourage people. I showed people how I was financially able to at least disconnect from this society. You can still interact with it, but you're no longer dependent on it. It's a way different ball game then,
I think
than
you can
being.
answer how that, food is a mechanism to soothe, and it's a mechanism to change how you feel, and for better for worse, right? And so you can make a decision psychologically solely out of willpower and determination, and you can do it. But that's just here. If it's not here and here, it won't ever last. If it's just here, that's when we see I gained it all back. Some life event happened and it was not completely integrated within me. I was doing out of, I'm going to prove myself, I'm going to prove to you or whatever. And then when shit goes down and I need that soothing, I need that dopamine, that change, I need to be, whatever, there goes the food. And I know what I'm eating isn't going to get me to where I want to be or whatever. It's not about me, my knowledge of what's healthy or what's not. It's about that it never went from here to here.
Yeah, I mean, it's always important to meet the problem at its correct level all the time. You know what I mean? Or the problem
Yeah.
always persists, obviously.
And
So
it's not always about bad things, but it's food of like, I'm going to eat when I'm happy. I'm going to eat when I'm sad. I'm going to eat when I'm bored.
yeah,
And I'm going to have these things. I'm traveling, I'm on the go. There's a lot of different things. Whereas you talked about biology before, resources were so scarce that we just ate to survive. We ate to have fuel. So it's an interesting conversation. But like I said, when I got a little like, I'm like, a lot of times now it's about like me just having the real conversations. That doesn't sell, right? That whole conversation of everything I had, there's no product that you can place to that except for like maybe therapy. But it's just kind of like, otherwise, I feel like it's talking it into a circle.
yeah. I mean, surface level marketing, it gets people in the door, but it just never works. And you do see it in any pretty much all industries for the most part. And but you got to speak the truth, man. You got to. It might be a much tougher sell, but uh, always with my clients, I kind of like, treat them as my best friends, you know what I mean? And I want to see the best for them. And it's just, it's bogus when you tell people like, hey, if you had 3 decades of weight challenges and hypertension challenges, and you're just going to be able to solve it by literally just changing something in your diet or changing something in your workout program, and magically everything is going to disappear overnight. But yeah, you mentioned with the food thing, it's kind of like, um, yeah, I mean, food, the good thing about it is it accepts you for who you are. It just loves you for who you are, which is like what everyone wants at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And also, a lot of times people feel like they don't have the power to be who they are in society. So, but food, it gives them that power. You know, you can buy it, it's very accessible anywhere. You can eat it, you can put it away when you want it. So they have that power too. And you know, it provides that love, unconditional love, doesn't ask any questions, gives you a good feeling all the time, etc., etc., etc. And for not everyone, but for a lot of people, they're lacking in that area quite a bit. So they
Hmm.
kind of dive into doubling down on just eating too much food and the wrong type of food. But then there's also a lot of people that do socially acceptable things like become a workaholic, you know. Um,
Yeah, and I think it's interesting with the GLP-1s too, which I'd say half of my clients are on. And I applaud I applaud that we are like tracking towards at least body fat percentage wise a healthier culture. My concern is, along with a lot of other people I know, is that it's not a permanent fix. And that if I'm using food to escape, when I stop taking that medication, will I then just no longer have that issue?
no, they will. The
You know what I'm
problem
saying? Kind of
is,
like, unless I'm taking that for the rest of my life, my relationship with food never changed.
yeah,
And that's not a discussion that's being had. If you're going to have a discussion about how this medication works and why it's so helpful, there should be also a discussion around when I come off of this, am I working on, you know what I'm saying? When
yeah.
professional athletes are not training, they're examining, they're looking at their tapes, they're looking at their performance and how they can do better. In my off season, when I'm not suffering with these habits and I'm losing weight and I'm looking great, am I looking at my previous relationship with food so that when I come off of this, I'm actually able to not revert back and not go back to where that was? But that's not a discussion that's being had. And to me, it's a little like madness where it's like you realize that this is still big pharma, right? Pulling all
Mhm.
the strings. They don't care about you.
Yeah, it's very true. Well, that's well, you're being an ethical healthcare provider, you know?
I think I'm
One
being
one in a
I think I'm
hundred.
being
I know it
like
sounds it's
rational. I think I'm just being rational. Like it's just like common sense. It's like reality. And yeah, ethical because I actually care about like for a long time, as I have told people in the last like 5 years, I don't say a long time. I would say 5 years. Um I was technically a little bit part of the problem in fitness, and it wasn't my necessarily my fault. It was when I came in to right when Instagram started and Facebook was heating up and became the original fitness influencer, where I was just like posting like tips on Facebook, like just like walking through Whole Foods and like doing these posts, and like no one was doing anything on social media with their business. They were like, "Are you crazy? Like, keep your business stuff off of this." I'm like, "No, like, I'm making money here. I'm getting clients." But around that time, it was all about six pack, get that V taper, right? Like, and do this, this, and this, and this. And it was a lot of extreme stuff. It was get pool party ready, very dialed into gay culture around fitness, which has now bled into heterosexual culture where it's about looks maxing and all of that stuff. The gay culture, and you have trained so many, gay men. Like that we were like the original looks maxers. Like we were always, like
You're
always
like, we wrote the original books.
dialed, overly dialed in. And I mean, people look at me and they're like, "Oh, he's so manicured," and I'm not. Like I do not take too much time. Even ask my partner, or too much time in the mirror. I'm not that way. But I was pandering to that. Not pandering, but I was like, okay, how am I going to get people ready for festivals? How am I going to get people ready for pool parties? It was part of like my business plan. And then it got into more extreme stuff where it was like, um, all of these articles on, then you do infrared sauna and then you do this. And when COVID hit and we all kind of like pulled back, and there was a lot of body positivity, there was a lot of shifting around fitness, the dialogue on fitness, what words you can use, what you can't, dieting, skinny, all of those things. It's completely different now. I had to look at my participation in that and go, yeah, I was definitely contributing for like 5 years to this unhealthy culture. um, and now I'm like more zoomed out and trying to be more like holistic about it, like in terms of like I understand how what my original contribution was.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. I'm curious, have you ever been confused by the labels in the grocery store? In Yevgeny's book, he demystifies the difference between caged, cage-free, free-range, and pasture-raised meats. He also covers how to avoid GMOs, source high-quality water, fish, supplements, and other related topics. It's a beautifully illustrated, non-technical read that comes with a comprehensive video series and other extended learning materials. Jump on Amazon and check out the book titled Anti-Factory Farm Shopping Guide by Evgeny Trufkin. Now let's dive back into the podcast.
Yeah, no, you're on the right path. There's that saying. There's a reason a cosmetic surgeon makes like 4 times more than a family physician, because
Yeah.
it's kind of like just easier to sell people on the surface level message of like, looking better and stuff like that. But also, even if you're into aesthetics, I'm still into aesthetic training. I found just at an early age, I never really had to motivate myself to train for aesthetics in the gym. Where with I tried other sports like wrestling, and I was on like the UCI paintball team as well for a long time, et cetera. But it's like I had to kind of like motivate myself to do those or create some kind of like justification in my mind. But with like lifting weights, in particular, lifting weights for aesthetics, I just kind of like always enjoyed it. You know what I mean? Always enjoyed studying
It
the
has to be
subject.
for it has to be for you.
Yeah. I just kind of enjoyed like the lifestyle, living kind of like like a disciplined monk kind of lifestyle, you know what I mean, where it's like simple and you're just really dedicating yourself to mastering the craft, et cetera, et cetera. But you made the right choice. I did that transition too, into kind of more holistic healthcare. I found it's like a tougher sell, you know, but it's the right way. And at a certain point, I mean, you're totally right. You just get sick of selling people like BS, you know what I mean? And just kind of concentrating on this surface level stuff. And uh, rewinding back a little bit, you're right about the GLP-1s, because inevitably what's happening is they're trying to solve a problem at the thinking and emotional dimension at a biological level. So they're not meeting the problem at its correct level. And what happens when that happens is the problem always persists. I know you're seeing so many people saying, like, I lost 40 pounds, 100 pounds on this. But trust me, 98+% of those people, I mean, I hate to say it, I'm just kind of don't want to sell false hope either. Do like a 5-year follow up with them, and you'll see they're way more overweight than ever before. You know what I mean? Um, because at the end of the day, just excess weight, especially, is kind of like a symptom of, just a lot of like mental and physical pain in a person's life. It's like, where is that coming from? And it needs to be solved at that level. And yes, that is difficult to do because it may require, first of all, it requires you to change the entire belief system that led to you accepting certain behaviors for long periods of time. Because I hate to say it, but it's like a lot of people don't realize how much money it takes to make yourself overweight. You know what I mean? So, and time. You got
Mm,
to, eat so much processed food, eat out often, have so many liquid calories. And it takes sometimes decades to become obese. So it's
mm,
not like it happens overnight, but
right.
it's like the person somehow willingly has something in their belief system that makes that acceptable to do. So that has to be like seriously and honestly addressed, among
Yeah,
myriad
like
of other things.
for me, I absolutely do not see the harm in if someone has that issue that's chronic obesity, or always being, let's say, 30 pounds overweight or whatever, or on borderline, um, and they go on a round of GLP-1s and it does break that emotional eating cycle. If that can be the interrupter where the person then doesn't reconnect, that it actually just brings them into a new reality, that's awesome.
Mhm.
I'm here to embrace modern medicine. I'm not an idiot. I evolved with my species. So the conversation still remains is the preparation for coming off of it, right? Am I using this break to really recommit and go under the hood of like what drove me, like you said, for so many years, spending all that money to get to this point? Because if I don't, my net neural pathway is going to take me right back there, because that hormonal disruptor, the GLP-1 that disrupts that, by appetite suppression, will be removed, and my neural pathways will take me right back to where it all began. It's like neurology. So the fact that there's just kind of like no discussion around that, is kind of mind-boggling. Like, I keep going back to this. So
Yeah, that's why if people decide to do that, they just got to hire people like you or someone else that's like more in the holistic health space, just to approach it from a more multidimensional perspective,
yeah,
and catch it at the
and
right level.
a simple tool could even literally be, right, because I feel like a lot of solutions in life are actually very simple. A simple tool and God given, right? Why did I eat this way? Why did I use food for me as an escape? And then you're just journaling, artist way journaling, no periods, no capitals, no commas, and you're just doing it 20 straight minutes, unpacking all of that. That's a great exploration if we're trying.
Yeah, one of the big things you mentioned about like kind of canceling out the food noise.
Mhm.
The etiology of food noise, if you kind of examine it, is basically kind of like I mentioned, that disconnect with core values. There are two levels to this, but that disconnect with core values that leads to large story gaps in a person's life. They kind of like, for example, want to be a painter, but it's not safe. They think for one reason or another, and it may be true in some cases, that it's not safe to be an artist because it's not going to pay well and people aren't going to respect me for my skills, or I'm not going to have the business skills to promote my art well, or whatever. So they become like a lawyer, like something that's more paved already, you know what I mean? And kind of guarantees a certain level of income and safety. And it's fine for like 2 years. Oh, I got a legal degree, it's like socially acceptable. I'm like, cool, and blah, blah, blah. But it's like a tough field, you know what I mean? It's legal field isn't for the weak for sure. So 2 years flies by, and in the back of their head, they're like, you know what? I know I'm being fake to myself. I just want to be an artist at the end of the day. But I'm doing this legal work, and now this um, assistant didn't do her job. Now I have to do her job, and you get disgruntled towards the assistant, whatever, et cetera, et cetera. And that disconnect creates an insidious microstress on the central nervous system that for some people lead to that food noise of wanting to stress eat. This happens in personal relationships too. Like maybe you're married to someone for 10 years and they were actually a great match for 10 years, but now you've drifted apart. So not only do you have this story gap at work, now most people are also coming back to their home and have a story gap in their home. You know what I mean? Which creates more of this kind of stress response, eating that quote unquote food noise. And then you throw in a central nervous system that hasn't changed in 250,000 years into an industrial society that has crazy amount of stimulation from social media, crazy amount of deadlines at work. This creates a lot more crazy amounts of insidious micro stress that the central nervous system that freaks out and doesn't know what to do with. And of course, a lot of people are going to reach for food, but not everyone. Some people, like I mentioned, become like a workaholic. Some people get into drugs. Some people get into alcohol. Some people get into promiscuous sex, et cetera, et cetera. But I would say that food noise, that stress eating is like a more popular path that you see a lot more often.
That's such a fascinating, and I completely agree with it. Um, Fascinating story gap. That story gap, and how that really actually has a huge effect on your body, retention and all of that stuff. But what does someone do, right? Like, what is if someone's not in the right, Because I always say, I've said for a long time, there's two types of great bodies, and it's just a joke, but it's actually very true. Which is the first one is the breakup body and the unemployed body. I have seen people's body change overnight, literally from a breakup or getting fired from a job. And one of the reasons, primarily why, is they were stuck. One of the reasons they're breaking up is because they were in a toxic relationship they were stuck in and they didn't know how to get out of. Or they were in a toxic job that they were stuck in and they didn't know how to get out of. And that choice was made for them or whatever. And like overnight, they their eating habits changed. They dropped all this waterway inflammation, and it's like, and in like 30 days, I'm like, what is this body? I had nothing to do with it, but this pillar of their life came crumbling down, and it's a phenomenon. It's a literal phenomenon that I've noticed in training that I'm just always blown away at and marvel at, and it's always fascinated me. How do I put that in a pill? How do I, you know what I'm saying? How do I, and it's a very difficult discussion to have, because how do you make major changes in your life like that? That the story gaps.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, sometimes those changes happen when people leave like a job that's not suiting for them anymore, or like a relationship. Some people just have a toxic internal critic, man. And you can't run away from that internal critic either, unfortunately, because wherever you, like the saying goes, wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people create their own problems, So they got to really address that honestly as well. Um, but I think a good first step uh, is first clarifying a person's core values, you know that way they have some clarity. You'd be surprised, Seth, there you can run into super successful 40, 50 year olds and you ask them, hey, what did you want, for yourself? And they're like, oh, I never really thought about that. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people are just kind of thrown, like the irony is, um, no one even asked you permission to be brought into this world. You just showed up, and then you're given a sex that you didn't even get to pick, and then you're given a name that you didn't even get to pick, and then you're in a country that you didn't even get to pick, and with a family that you didn't even get to pick, and then you have all these rules thrown at you that you have to follow indirectly or directly, and if you don't follow, you get punished. It's like, so it's like in some ways the world's kind of unfair in like many from many vantage points,
Yeah.
and it's unforgiving. And so I think like adding clarity in terms of like, hey, what are your core values? Because your core values are kind of like a north star of what you should be saying yes and no to,
Well, how
you
do you
know?
establish what your core values are? What does that look like?
Yeah, there are like a couple of different ways to go about it. One of the easiest low cost ways is uh, basically, in order to know who you are, you have to first know who you are not. I got that from like Stefan Walensky. So basically, you spend a large part of your life doing stuff you don't like. Coincidentally, because in the beginning, you may actually think you actually like it or it's right for you.
Correct.
But then you got to be intuitive and listen to your heart or your spirit or whatever you believe in when you feel that there's a disconnect in that path. You know what I mean? Or you feel that that path was right for you for a certain chapter in your life, but is no longer right for you. Because a lot of times, like for example, people wear like this is just random, but people wear socks when they're a kid, like really good, high quality wool socks. But then they still keep trying to wear those socks when they're 30 and they're wondering why it's not fitting anymore. You know what I mean? So some things were right for you 5 years of your life, but no longer right for you. So a lot of times people have trouble letting certain things go. But basically, you got to do stuff you don't like, and then take note of like, hey, there's a disconnection here. And what is this telling me? So if they lose their job, or a job doesn't work out, or a relationship doesn't work out, moreover, focus on like, what has this taught me in terms of what I want for my next relationship? You know what I mean? And then over time, as you keep trying, your core values will get more and more narrow and more clear, and then and then the next step is to hold yourself accountable to not prostituting yourself out. You know what I mean? For like, for example, if your core value is working 2 days a week, you know but then someone comes around and offers you like 300K to work 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, and you do that. Like in the beginning you're like, oh, it's 300K, blah blah blah, but you'll see that misalignment, that story gap is going to come back. You know what I mean? And eventually you'll be like, you know what, I'm being fake to myself. You will know. Unfortunately, though, a lot of people, what they do is they start reframing the negative into the positive. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I hate this job, but I get medical insurance. Or I hate this job, but it's consistent. You know what I mean? And it keeps them stuck. And deep down inside, they kind of know they're lying to themselves. But once they create so many layers of lies, even they forget what's truth and a lie, So it becomes really, really tough to kind of change that person. And that might be a lot of the people that you run into in their 40s or 50s with a lot of health problems. So it's like something you got to investigate.
Well, I've had this in my own life several times. One was recently, like I was, working on this show. That's really cool. It's really exciting. And we had pitched it about 2 years to different networks, production companies 2 years ago for a year. There was a strong interest in it from some pretty heavy hitters. And it really looked for a second like we were going to sell it and my life was going to change. And then Hollywood blew up, and at the time, the golden hour when we were going to sell it, and all these strikes and everything, and the deals just fell off the table. And after a year, we were just kind of like, all right, let's take a break. But it, ever since that happened, up until about 6 months ago or whatever, I felt like misaligned, like very like there was something was always nagging at me. I felt out of value. Like I felt like I was just showing up to work, just doing the training, and I was really having this heart to heart with my partner, and we were just talking about my professional life and just like my life, and I was like, you know what? I need to bring this thing back for digital, even if it's the sole thing for that. I need to express myself. I want to creatively express myself. I don't need anyone to like it. I don't need anyone to buy it. I'm not worried about the money. I need to go out there and just make this thing happen because that's a core value for me. This
Hmm.
creative expression. And if I'm just doing it daily and working on it, regardless of the outcomes, my life is gonna get better. My world around me is going to get better because I'm in alignment with what I truly want. um and that changed things for me. Even when I was like newly sober, my first year of sobriety, and it's like a ridiculous story but it's so true. uh I was just doing like different random jobs just so I could have, they call it your get well job, your first year of sobriety, where it's got to be like a lightweight, usually more part-time job where you can focus on your meetings, your step work, getting healthy again so that you're not too stressed and overwhelmed. And I had this like cater waiter job. that I was really bad at. And I was always
A cater wisher shop?
cater waiter. I was like
Oh, okay, okay.
serving,
Got it,
in
got it, got
Orange
it. Okay.
County, like serving, I was breaking things. I was just really bad at it. It was comical, really. And my sponsor at the time was very much like, you need to have a job. You need to have a job before you quit a job. And, you need money. And I knew I needed money. But and every like there was even a time I tried to quit, but the person that hired me was sober. He was like the manager of the place, and he was the one that got me the job. And like I tried to quit, and he was like, "No, Seth, just like give it more time. You're gonna be okay." But I was so miserable in this stupid little job that was giving me $14 an hour or something. And I remember I had broken the umpteenth thing, and I just went, and I knew, I was like, oh, my sponsor's going to be mad and this and that, and he's going to not let me quit. But I just went in there and I said, this job's not right for me. It's not right for me. I don't care if I can't pay my rent. I don't care if I can't pay my cell phone bill. If no one helps me, I can't do this job. I didn't say this to him. It's soul crushing. I'm out. I'm out. And when I walked away, it was just this like very real feeling of like, I'm not doing what I think I should be doing anymore. This is not right for me. I don't know what the fuck is out there for me, but as long as I'm not giving all my time to something that's not for me, the thing that is for me can have more room to come to me. And man, like, boom. I think 2 weeks later, I had a kick-ass start at 24-hour fitness, and the journey began.
Yeah, so that's a common example of like the story gap. And maybe initially like that waiter job was like super cool. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, I got some money coming in finally. It's like overall like probably not like overly stressful. I was a busboy at IHOP during high school, so I got to know that world a little bit. I was pretty
Yeah.
terrible at it too. They first um, because there's a lot of Spanish speakers working at IHOP at the time. They put me as a host initially,
Mhm.
thinking I actually knew English myself, but I still wasn't that great at English even then myself. So I couldn't spell people's names right. And then like once they found out, they're like, no, you're going to be a busboy instead. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I get
Same.
the struggle. That world isn't for us, but it's okay. We gave it a try,
I
we gave it an
tried.
honest go.
I tried. I tried. They were making fun of me in Spanish the whole time. I was hearing Gringo did it again.
Yeah, I was like, they called me El Diablo Blanco the whole time, that was my
Oh
nickname there.
yeah, White Devil.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
me.
well, see, because so many of them thought that because I'm ethnically ambiguous, so maybe a good part of them thought I was Spanish or Latin or whatever, and so I just became this total hack. Um, I couldn't carry anything, was breaking everything. It was absolute shit show comedy. To this day, the worst job I ever had. But I always stand on business when I talk about I quit so hard that day. Like I quit hard. I come from a family of very hard workers and people that like drilled into your brain capitalism and like you must have a job and like entrepreneurs and stuff. So to like full on quit a job when I had none was crazy to me. But at that time, I knew what you were saying without having the words. Story gap or whatever this is, that I'm out of I'm so out of alignment. And that if I don't break this cycle in some way, I'm never going to get to whatever else is out there. That this thing is making me toxic.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and if that creativity is important to you, I mean, it's like super important to me too. That's why I got into the book writing and the podcasts and stuff of that sort. I think training is cool because you can do it 2 or 3 days a week and still make really good money. You might have to be like a little bit more conscious of your spending if you cut 2 or 3 days out, But then you have like enough time to express your creative outlets too. Are you going to try that to pitch the show again?
Yeah, so the show now is I'm reformatting it for YouTube, which is where I am seeing like the general direction of, you know, where television is going. So I'm less concerned about creating this big hit streaming show. Um, Whereas I'm more concerned about developing a very solid YouTube series that people will get help by and will really enjoy, because that's where I see a lot of people are seeing the future of entertainment. But I'm also open, if a streamer wants to buy it, then so be it. That's awesome. But yeah, and so those same two of those same companies, when its first season package is on YouTube, they're going to look at it as a proof of concept, essentially a pilot, and we could sell it much easier that way. So I'm doing it for two reasons, primarily for YouTube and digital, but also it will immediately serve as a pilot, a proof of concept that these people are actually waiting to see and interested to see. It's much easier to sell it that way. So that's where I'm at. But I've had, oh God, the non creative business part of it has been absolutely brutal the last almost 6 months. Contracts and lawyers and untethering it from its previous television life form and previous producing partners and repackaging it for YouTube. And YouTube is such a different animal than television, and the way people consume and what interests them on YouTube is so different that my brain, what I find fascinating is my brain can watch something on Netflix or Hulu or Prime, but when I go to YouTube and consume, my brain switches into a different, it is entertained differently. I want to see things differently. So formulating the show that it really hits for YouTube isn't just like taking a television series and putting it on YouTube. It's really changing a lot of mechanics. So I'm doing a lot of like reconfiguring legally this show and then reconfiguring it to work on YouTube. And it's an interesting show concept in itself. So it's not the easiest. It's like I feel like I've been working on like a math problem for 6 months. I can't wait till I'm just expressing myself.
Are you allowed to talk about it? I don't want you to
Yeah,
leak
yeah,
your
yeah.
concepts.
So the show, I was originally brought on as talent from a guy named Adam Rousseau, and he had this idea of five healers coming together in the spiritual art forms to make people over on the inside rather than the outside. So it's like the spiritual queer eye. So there was
Okay,
a psychic, a tarot reader, a life coach trainer, which is me, intuitive life coach trainer, which is me, a witch, and an astrologer.
got it. Okay,
And one person in pain or in a crossroads, and these are all like the best in their field or very, very good. One person in pain or in a crossroads meets with all five collectively and then individually, and each person does their thing to help heal them or give predictions or whatever. So the show kind of showcases how it all works together from all these different points of spiritual healing. And I just thought it was the coolest idea ever. People are really leaning into the spiritual and metaphysical as well as technology. And so I was brought on because of my experience in television production as a producer. And then now I have taken it over to just reformat it. The name is different, the cast is different, and I'm reformatting it for digital and YouTube.
yeah. So it's kind of like I remember like I think it was like Big Brother. I forgot the TV show. I remember Greg Plitt, one of my favorite like fitness icons, was on it one time. That's the only episode I ever watched, but it was like so long ago at this point. No, it's a pretty cool concept. You better do it, man, or I'm going to block you if I find out that you abandoned that project and you're
Yeah.
not allowed to message me ever
A
again.
lot to me. I really want to do it. I really feel like it's for me, and it's definitely not the television concept. So much of it has been tweaked and modified. It's more the way it's formatted for YouTube. It's more testable. It's more measurable, which is kind of exciting and like nerve wracking. Where we're having some of these healers put the money where their mouth is, right? They're coming out and they're making these predictions or offering these solutions, and they're going to be followed up on, and they're going to be tested in a way. So that's different. And again, like I said, we have different casts. It's a different name, and it's on a completely different medium. It's on YouTube, which was nothing. It wasn't really anything that we were actively considering. So I'm excited to do it, but I think that when you are doing a creative project that is bootstrapped, where you don't have this fund and you are working your day job, and when you run into the red tape and you run into all of the ups and downs, it can slow you down if you're not careful. So you have to just pick back up your sword and get to it.
Well, I find like one of the things that prevents people from creating change that they actually want to create is kind of like doubt or a harsh internal critic. What are some obstacles internally are you run into trying to pursue this path again?
Doubt is such a good one where I have to go back to telling myself, listen, I'm doing this to express myself. I have to say it over and over. I am doing this because this is a creative project that I believe in. I think people will love. I want to, even if they don't love it, I want to see what it looks like. I want to bring this. I'm a creator, right? I've always been a creator. So I want to see what this looks like. I want to see how this goes. And coming from that space and having to go back to that, like over and over, that it's not a win or lose or whatever, because I do have that whole experience of getting right to the edge of selling it, and then, oh, is this happening all over again? Right? That you talk about the inner critic or the inner saboteur, that this goes, oh, am I just wasting my time again? Is this just a pump fake? So that I have to go back to going, um, you know, look, it's not win or lose. It's not about being liked. It's about, I want to bring this thing into reality. And then honestly, some days you just literally have to turn off your feelings. And it's not a feelings based thing. It's um to prevent that gap, that story gap, to keep me in alignment with my core value. I am committing 1.5 hours a day that I'm going to do this, whether I like it or not, that I'm in that energy. I'm contributing to that energy, whether I'm in a good mood or a bad mood, if I'm tired or if I'm not. I am actively involved in it, and that helps me.
Yeah. Also, what did I want to say? Kind of space out from time to time here. Um, yeah, but I think that's really cool. And oh, also, like I found it really interesting. Have you ever noticed kind of like the mind is always like changing its mind? You know?
Oh,
Yeah. So like I always just train myself to like not even pay attention to it. It just kind of does its thing. And it's like today it likes this, tomorrow it doesn't like that same thing. And the third day it's indifferent. And I'm like, that's like the nature of the mind, and that never changes. That's kind of important to remember on a specific journey. So like you already instinctually established procedures. You're
I
like, I'm
have.
just going to do this for an hour and a half or 2 hours a day, whatever. It doesn't even matter whether I'm into it or not, or have self doubt or don't have self doubt. And and I think it's always important to kind of fall into being procedural if you want to be consistent, because it's not procedural unless it's done every time, whether you're depressed, whether you're happy, whether you lost your job, whether you have your job, it just needs to be done all the time. And oftentimes just think about it that way. It makes it easier. You know what
Mm.
I mean? Instead of relying on kind of the fleeting nature of your mind and emotions, which kind of change with the wind sometimes, whichever way the
Yeah,
wind is blowing that day.
a lot of people I really admire, or I just can tell that they're just so creative, like they're creative genius and they've hit really big, is they're in there. And I'm fascinated by their psychology and like what unifies them, what do they all have in common. And honestly, the funny part is a lot of them are just like in their own world. They are like in this delusional state where they believe something, they want something, they see it for themselves, and they just continually do it. No matter how good or bad they are, they never give up. They're like a dog with a bone. And that is really what I've seen as the key to the success is it's just like repeated action over and over, like just ringing this bell and until it happens. And so for me, as someone that's creative, but I also have this like horrible rationalization and like being logical and like analytical, that runs really counter a lot of times to my creative forces. Be is trying to stay in this delusional state and just seeing it through. That can completely try to work me out of manifesting this thing. So, like you said, the mind is a really interesting thing, and it all depends on what kind of mind you got.
Yeah. Well, the irony is like probably your logical side is what's going to help you carry out the task in the external world consistently enough to see it into fruition,
And that's my part, right? Because I have other producing partners in this that are far more on the creative end. My part is really the business part. My part is the earthbound part, bringing this thing to life and formulating in it, making it business. But I still have to be creative enough to believe in this silly little show to get it on people's screens and not give up. Because I think you can attest, and a lot of other people can attest, it's so much easier to go work for somebody and make their dreams a reality. What's so hard about that? Put me in a box and I have these hours and I go to this place and I just perform this function and I don't have to go through this hell. But the hell that I would be experiencing internally by doing that and being out of my core value would be far worse than the hell I have trying to make my dreams reality.
Yeah, that's true. So, some people, they're destined for the corporate ladder, you know what I mean? But it's far in between. I know the difficulty with larger companies is inevitably you have to mold around the personality of the company because it's not going to mold around your personality and core values. So the best you can do is try to kind of align it as close as you can. But then
Well,
there's
yeah,
also the
and not
challenge
everybody
of,
wants to be an entrepreneur. For
yeah,
for a lot of people, that's hell. And I say, do not touch it if you don't want it. Don't touch it if you don't want
don't touch it if you don't like eating glass. Just
it.
kidding.
I'm
Yeah.
jealous. Like, enjoy your paid vacation. Hop on that plane during the summer and take those 2 weeks and enjoy it for me. You
Well, I
know?
think they're bumping it up to like 3.5 weeks for a lot of companies.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just had a client. He has a big job. Like runs a lot of shit. He works for a streamer and he's like the president of publicity for this big streamer. So got all these movies and shit that he's working on. The motherfucker just went on like basically a 1 month vacation, and I'm like, how? And he was everywhere. But they approved it.
Yeah. Well, one thing that helped me when I was stuck, this was so many years ago at this point, when I was doing coaching like 6 days a week, after college, I ended college and just started working full time, like crazy hours, like everyone else, because I kind of intuitively inside I knew it was kind of like didn't feel healthy, but I'm like, well, this is what adults do, they kind of hustle and they make money and
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. But after, of course, like 2 or 3 years of doing that, I completely kind of burned out. That's when my testosterone kind of hit the tank. And I was sitting at Whole Foods in Irvine with a friend, and he was like an entrepreneur guy. He had a coffee business at the time. And I'm like, oh man, I just can't work these crazy hours. And he's like, well, have you ever sat down and look at how much money you really need to be like completely free? You know what I mean? And I looked at it and I'm like, oh, I only need like $2,000 a month. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, that's not that bad at all. And then I instantly was like, I could easily cut my hours down into 4 days a week, And I did that like almost like overnight and it already made a huge difference in terms of my adrenal health and I didn't feel rushed doing my workouts anymore, or have to rush to this place and this place and this place because I had no time to even run my errands. Um, that alone made a huge difference. But if I wouldn't have done that obvious thing, which is like so easy to do, like I wouldn't have ever known because I was always like, I just need like more money, like more, you know what I mean? And then ironically, when I died my hours down, I invested more time into like education and actually being better in my craft and was able to actually make more money working way less hours. Um, but that's just kind of like a small tip that I don't know, it's like so obvious, but sometimes you don't even run into it, you know what I mean?
So is it just you out there?
It's just
Like,
me, man.
so you kind of had mentioned something where you were like, I had to cut some people, places, and things out of my life that didn't support this kind of holistic vision for myself. What was that like for you? That sounds like a major change.
Well, the thing is, I kind of grew up with my grandmother that lived disconnected from society, like the initial many years of my life. So I had that reference point. And she never like got a job, never plugged into society. She always did her own like biodynamic, self-sustaining off-grid thing her whole entire life, died at 87 without even having to go to the hospital a single time. Um, I didn't really, honestly, I'm still in touch with like a lot of my friends from college. Um, so I wouldn't say I like necessarily cut anyone out. I was moreover had to be honest with what I wanted. You know what I mean? And there's no one kind of preventing me from doing that except me, you know? Um, and that's why I made that move. Like what I did for a lot of people, they're like, well, how do you do it financially? You know what I mean? That's the big thing. And of course, it's harder in some areas than others. Like LA is pretty damn expensive, like Seattle, New York, they're like super expensive cities. But what I did is just got like a triplex and it's 3 units, two bedrooms, one bath per unit with its own parking space. And I did like the popular house hacking. There's already so hundreds of thousands of people have done this already. I'm not like an innovator, but basically you just live in one of the units and you rent out the others, and you're able to live rent free
Right, right, right.
while your property appreciates in value too. Because I was thinking of getting like a van, like a really cool van, and living the van life, which I think is like super cool too. But
Uh,
then I also don't like living in parking lots and having to take a shower at any time, fitness every day.
yeah,
Um, and also just the one disadvantage of that strategy is the car doesn't appreciate in value. It's just going to lose value over
right.
time. And it's quite expensive. It's like 70 to $100,000 to build it out. And with that money, you could easily just use that as a down payment for a triplex, which will most never say never. Sometimes housing markets collapse, but it's most always just appreciates in value. And in the meantime, you get to live for free as well, rent free. And then I was always big into getting like a used car. So I've always had a paid off used car. I've never had a new car. And cars are deceptively expensive in the US. I mean, on the low end, unless your car is paid off, you're paying like 10 grand a year on the low end. But some people, in LA especially, you can get into like 30, 40,000 a year for a car from start to finish. And people don't see that because it's kind of like they see just the monthly payments. But if you add up all the monthly payments and then the random repair here and there, dude, you're looking at like minimum ten grand. which for some people in our circles is like nothing. You know what I mean? But for a lot of Americans, that's like life-changing money, an extra 10,000 a year.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
And imagine you eliminate your rent, let's say that's like 2,000 a month. So now you're saving 24,000 a month. So with the car and that, you're saving like 34,000 a year.
And what's
That's
your
a,
social connections like where you live? Are you in more of like I don't want to say an isolated place, but is it like a super small city, a medium sized city?
I mean, it's kind of like you've been a Big Bear before, right?
Yeah.
It's like exactly like a copy and paste Big Bear, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
But I enjoy my solitude.
Yeah.
Sometimes I go like 2, 3 weeks without talking to literally anyone but my clients.
Okay.
And it works for me. It's probably not going to work for a lot of people.
What
Um,
are you thinking? What are you doing with your time? Because someone would look at you and go, "Oh, this guy," like they would never think that he's just chilling in his quietness. Like you just like very like zen.
no, actually, that is what I do a lot of times. Sometimes it's nice. You get up and you don't do anything. I just get my workout in, I get my meals in, I maybe read a little bit and go to sleep. Ironically, this is how actually people lived for pretty much 98% of human evolution. And if you look at like tribal societies like the Hansa, which are kind of living like people kind of lived like 30,000 years ago, they live like a very similar way. They maybe work like 2 hours a day. And then the rest of the time, they're just kind of like lounging around, socializing. That's it. You know what I mean? And that's, I know it sounds super crazy to hear
No,
that, but
it
that's
doesn't
literally
sound great.
how,
It sounds healthy.
yeah.
It sounds fascinating, and it also sounds challenging, right? That need for stimulation. What I mean, do you just have you kind of knocked that one out, or where um do you just kind of fallen into a rhythm where it's like um this works for me, this kind of like daily schedule?
Yeah, I think with once you have your kind of like biological needs met, you know, in a very concrete way and it's kind of solidified, like usually like anything you try to accomplish after that is most likely driven by like the conditioned self, which is kind of like fear driven. And it will give you sugar highs. You accomplish something, you get to like 150,000 a year, you know? You're like, oh shit, I'm the man. You know what I mean? And 2 years goes by, you're like, well, now I need 250,000 a year. You know what I mean? And then you spend a few years working towards that, developing the business skills, you know, the mindset, et cetera. Then you get to 250,000 a year. And it's like really nice for a little while, but then you go back to feeling empty. And then you're like, now I need 500,000 a year, you know? And the conditioned self, you got to be careful because it does produce great things in the world sometimes, like inventions, you know, life-saving medicine, stuff like that. But it typically takes you really far away from your essential core. And um, it could lead to a tremendous amount of misery and mental pain in your life. Although on the outside, you may look like an amazing accomplishment. You know what I mean? But you've
Well,
seen many
this
people,
is
you know,
actually a really important conversation because I'm a pretty spiritual person, but I always like to say it in ways that you would never expect, and also in ways that you just don't know about. And I hope that you do know about. But um, what I like to say is I don't identify with anything. I don't. I don't identify with being gay or male or a trainer. I don't identify with living in LA. I don't identify with my body. I don't. This is just all part of like a learning experience for me, like something I chose where I'm like, oh, I'm in the matrix. Like, what do I do with this? My identification is with my soul, and it's with like purpose. It's for like the people I help. It's the things I learn. That's where my worth and value come from, and all of these other things are like cool things that I can do.
Hmm.
But as long as I identify with something, it's like you said, it's going to drive me away from my core purpose and my core value. Attaching, you know what I'm saying? It's like attaching myself to this story is pointless.
That's true. Anytime you identify with anything, you limit yourself to that identity, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of truth to that, and sometimes it helps you,
I
sometimes
have
it
to
doesn't.
identify with enough things to create a package, to create an existence, to be like dense enough for you to see. But behind the scenes, I don't actually identify with that.
Yeah, that's what Walensky would refer to as like multidimensional awareness.
Yeah,
It's like you're aware that you have a conditioned self and you need to rely on it to survive in the external world, but at the same time, you also realize that you're not it.
I'm not it.
Meaning, like everything you know about you or me, it comes from your thoughts,
I
right?
don't feel like it. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't
Yeah.
feel like it. I created it, but I don't feel like it. And so therefore I don't place my worth in it. Now times can when I have survival, right? Like it's based because survival will cause crazy things to happen, right? Then I can really misalign and I'm really judge. Sometimes I can put my value in it and my self worth because my survival, and it's like a shame thing. But when I get out of it, and if I'm not in that survival state, and I just go really like, I don't identify with it. The people that really love me and that I have in my daily life, they don't come to me for how I look or what I do or any of my history. Um, they come to me because they see the it, like the me in there. They see me, and those are the people that are like close. Those are the people that are
Mhm.
my life today.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, very cool, man. This has been so exciting and like enlightening. I loved it.
Yeah, I didn't even know which direction it went, but it's an interesting because I was hoping we wouldn't just talk about stupid nutrition and reps. That's like so beyond boring at this point, man. So I'm happy we didn't kind of double down
We
on
can
those
always have
topics.
a more like a workout design talk another time.
Yeah. But Seth, man, it's good to stay in touch. Yeah, I can't believe it's been like since 2016 since we did our other podcast together, like way back when. I think it was 2016 or something around there.
I think let's see. I think it was later than that. It was before. Let me just try to do the math here. Maybe 19 or 18 or 19.
Was it? I forget exactly, but even then, still quite a long
Right
time,
around like
8 years.
that point. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was then. But we got to make it soon. We got to make it sooner than that.
Yeah. Well, you're always welcome back on, man. So we keep in touch anyways, and it's always good to stay in touch with you. Um, is there anything else you would like to cover today? I'm happy to cover anything else.
Oh, that was fun. Got my
Yeah.
juices flowing.
Cool. Okay, well, thanks for everyone that jumped on. Seth, it was good to see you and have a good weekend, okay?
Good to see you too. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for tuning into the podcast. If you've ever had trouble losing weight, or you've lost weight, but still didn't have the ideal body or health you're aiming for, please feel free to reach out anytime and book an assessment. Eugene will work with you to cover your goals in detail, see what's holding you back, and go from there. In the meantime, feel free to check out the countless testimonials on Eugene's website in the link below. In the testimonial section, you'll notice everyone has various backgrounds, are of all different ages, and all have had different challenges in their life, but they all have one thing in common: they were all able to find their health and achieve their ideal body. You're also welcome to add yourself to the Facebook group in the link below. There you'll have access to the live videos that Eugene does weekly on Sundays, and other helpful content. Thank you again for tuning in.